So the kind of the headline here is excess funds in a 529 can now be rolled over to a Roth IRA. That is Robbie's like, what do you got, Robbie?
My question is what will be under the excess fund definition?
Yeah, great question. So as far as I know, and Victoria, I know you've done some research on this as well, so you can tell me if any of this is wrong. But essentially, how I interpret it is, and we'll go over the details of how much there's a max here. But essentially, what they've said is, if you have excess funds, as in funds in the account that you're not using for education, I think you kind of determine that, right? Like, oh, we're not using this for education. We now can roll this over to a Roth IRA. That's how I interpret it. So there is, did I get that right, Victoria?
Yeah, you got it.
she's my fact checker. So when you hear this, you're probably thinking, like, you could hear this. If you just hear the headline, you're like, oh, that's amazing. Right. 529s are incredible now, right? Because we tend to favor Roth IRAs over 529s in general. Now someone might hear that and say, oh, well, I'll start using 529 now. However, there's some buts. There's some buts here. There's some caveats. Okay. So let's break down what these different kind of like the fine print, right? So number one, this probably goes without saying, but number one is the name of the Roth needs to be the same as the name of the beneficiary. So can't be the owner of the account and I'm going to move it into my Roth. Its beneficiary has to match up. The lifetime is $35,000. One thing you might be asking, Robbie, I know you might be asking this, is like, well, what does that mean? 35K. There's actually they haven't fully been very clear on what this is. Is it like per beneficiary? Is it per owner? They actually have not designated that. Right now, people are interpreting that $35,000 max as per beneficiary, but that has not been clearly made.
That's the maximum amount you can roll over into a Roth, not the maximum amount you can put in the 529. That's right?
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Okay. 529s generally don't have a max, or if they do, it's per state, and it's usually very, very high. But the actual rollover to the Roth is a lifetime max. Again, we think per beneficiary of $35,000. The 529, here's another caveat. The 529 must have been open for more than 15 years, which is, a long time. Has to be open for 15 years. Contributions and growth on contributions to the 529. Let me make sure I have this right. Oh, so contributions and growth on the contributions to the 529 within the previous 5 years cannot be rolled over to a Roth. So they have to be in that account for at least 5 years. So account has to be open for 15 years. Contributions you've made to the to the 529 have to sit there for at least 5 years before they can be rolled. Again, Victoria, anything I'm missing here?
No, I think it's obviously this change just affects our guidance and what we're telling clients. And so I very much see a world where we start to tell like new parents, like, hey, just open a 529, because in order to even be eligible for this at all, it needs to exist for 15 years. So you basically need to open it up before they're 3. Yep. So I can definitely see us starting to recommend that and starting to fund it early so that you get both of those timelines met, the 15-year mark and then the 5-year mark as well.
Yep. Robbie's brain is I can always tell his brain is churning right now.
You guys know that I'll relate everything to investments. And in my mind, based on like my humble experience with my 529 accounts, it's the state provides what investment options are available, right? And most of the time they are they look like a target date fund that goes to become more conservative as the kid reaches the age of 18.
Yep.
If you want to implement this as a strategy where I'm going to put the money up to 35K that I can roll over and this my 529 and then roll it over into a Roth, maybe I don't want to be conservative during the last couple of years. And here's where I'm thinking, where's the trade-off?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And we'll hit this at the end of like, okay, with these changes, do 529s, are they more appealing now or not? Like, I will give my thoughts. You guys can give your thoughts, but yeah, you're absolutely right, Robbie. It changes the way you approach those investments depending on now what the goal is. There's a big difference in a Roth IRA versus 529 being used for school on a certain timeline. Like that can definitely change how you invest the money. last thing on this is interesting. The rollover limit. So rollover from like, let's say an IRA to a Roth IRA or 401k to an IRA, from like retirement account to retirement account, there is no limit to that. You could have $5 billion in a 401k and you can roll that over to an IRA. If you have $5 billion in your 401k, congratulations, by the way. But there's a limit on this. So moving from a 529 to a Roth IRA, again, remember $35,000 lifetime limit. Also, there's a yearly limit of $6,500 per year, the same as the contribution limit. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. The 529 beneficiary needs to have earned income, the same as they would put money into a Roth. So there you go. Am I freezing? Is my Zoom freezing? Are we good?
No, you're solid.
Okay, got it. So those are, and then the other thing that we're not totally sure of, it's not totally clear, is the 15-year clock, does it reset? Because a 529 can be, you can change beneficiaries as much as you want. We're not totally sure. Does that restart the clock of the 15 years? They have not come out with any guidance on that. So the takeaway from this is, okay, our 529 is more appealing because of this, sort of. I would actually still, in my opinion, I would still tell most dentists out there that kids on payroll directly fund a Roth IRA before looking at a 529. Like, this changes nothing for me in regards to that or regards to that recommendation for a client. But Victoria, would you say the same thing? What would your take on that be?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying about kids on payroll. I think it probably more so affects folks who are not dentists and like need a way to shelter funds from taxes. But I think from our stance, I don't know that it will change much.
Yeah.
And I guess there's a lot that has yet to be clarified, but this won't even become a thing for 15 years. So we'll see how this plays out, but we really won't see the benefits for a really long time.
And by the time that 15-year rolls around, something will change.
Something will change.
They'll change rules and stuff. So
yeah, for sure.
I actually think the last thing on this, I think the bigger change is for 529s to make it more appealing is that you can use them for different levels of schooling rather than just higher education. That to me is a way bigger deal than any of this stuff. So again, doesn't change our advice of Roth versus a 529.